I'm going to sit back a bit. Oh, how are we all doing? Happy, what are we, Wednesday? Happy Wednesday. This is not a very flattering angle, but never mind. We're not here to be a model, are we? We're here to share and teach. I wanted to come online and give you a quick lowdown on what your Wildheart child needs. So I work with Wildhearts. A Wildheart is a strong-willed, sensitive child. And you'll know if you've got one because they'll push all the boundaries. They'll be prone to big emotional meltdowns because they're highly sensitive and they pick up all the energy in the room. Say I and raise your hand if you have a Wildheart. They are the child that will break you open. So if you haven't started your journey to healing yet, or you haven't done any self-development work, this is the child that will drag you to coaching, kicking and screaming because you won't have a choice. They don't respond well to old-style parenting. So you know the kind of parenting that we were brought up with in the 80s. They don't respond well to that at all. They don't respond well to punishments, threats, and mostly because they're big on integrity. They have like bucket loads of integrity. So they always need to understand why. And often when they challenge you, it's because they're coming from a place of doing the right thing. I often call them like the right police. I say to my kids when I'm coaching them jokingly, because everything has to be right and it's their job to make it right. And really it isn't their job to make it right because actually when we get involved in other people's arguments, it doesn't end well. But they are misunderstood because often they're peacemakers. So that their intentions are good and they come from a place of integrity, but then that can come out sideways and it can also trigger lots of people. They're really brutally honest as well. They've got very busy brains. They've got massive imaginations. They are prone to worrying and they really need help with their emotional intelligence because they pick up other energies in the room. They need to learn how to protect their energies. They need boundaries. So you need to role model healthy boundaries to them. I've just posted actually on here. I've just done a post on sibling rivalry, if you've seen it, because that is what's coming up in coaching a lot. I guess we're heading into the home straight for the summer holidays and maybe parents are getting fearful that there's going to be... Is that a spot on my chin or is that lipstick? Sorry, it's just really annoying me. I can see it. Stop it, Lisa. Sorry. Heading into the home straight for hanging out as families together. And, there's a lot of sibling rivalry. So check out the post that I've just posted about squabbling and sibling rivalry because there is a way around that. And, family is the best training ground for learning healthy conflict resolution. But you can only learn it as a family if you as parents have been taught healthy conflict resolution. If you don't know, if you're conflict avoidant or if you're aggressive and you go on the attack, if you're prone to angry outbursts, you can't then expect your children to not fight with each other because they're not who's going to teach them how to resolve conflict. I mean, often it depends on the temperament of your child, I think. So Wildhearts are strong-willed, sensitive children and they will want everything to be right. It's important to them. So I thought I would say to you, the best place to start with these children in terms of my coaching resources is with the podcast. Don't overlook the free stuff. I had a thought the other day and I was listening to another coach talk and he was saying, when you put stuff out there for free, no one appreciates the value of it. People don't see the value of it, so they don't listen to it because they don't think it's worth anything, or they think you're trying to hook them in with the free stuff to sell more stuff to you. You could, if you had the time and the patience, because drip feeding this stuff to children is how they learn. Healing or enlightenment or whatever you want to call it is a lifelong journey, a lifelong unveiling of who you are. So you're not just going to do a course for 6 weeks and then bam, it's all sorted. You've got to kind of take your time. If you listened to that podcast, starting with episode 1, if you just listened to each episode, maybe you started a journal with your child, perhaps you print off the things that I do, the activities in the podcast that I tell you what to do. But I'm just thinking maybe I should start charging for the podcast because then you would appreciate the value of it. The value in it is enormous. It's £50 to see a therapist for 1 hour, right? I've done 15 years of therapy and I've taken all of that and then I've layered that with all of the things that the kids bring me to coaching. I've identified all the key pain points and issues, and that's where all the episodes are written from. So the value of listening to that podcast, and it's funny because probably if I started charging for it, the next thing people would say is, oh, we haven't got time for that. Because it's priorities, isn't it? It's like, are you going to make this stuff important or not? I'm not telling you off, but I'm laughing because I do it for free because I recognise not everyone has the budget for one-to-one. And my goal is to help as many children grow up with what they need as possible. And that comes from my own wounding. That comes from my own pain of being a child that felt misunderstood, lonely, upset, not fitting in, not belonging. That comes from my own wounding. I don't want other kids to feel like that. Now, I can't save all the children in the world and I can't help them all, but the point of doing the podcast was to get all the messaging. Like the core of my work is in that podcast, and it's also in my blog for adults. So smileyforlife.com/truly madly smiley is the podcast, and smileyforlife.com/blog is the adult blog. If you could sit down and read a blog post a day, there's over 100 blog posts on there about friendships, about sibling rivalry, about boundaries, about your parenting, your wounding, looking at your inner child stuff. So if you could just look at one blog post a day and get your kids to listen to the podcast, what normally happens with kids is they find an episode that they love. You know how they like repetition and they like what feels comfortable? So they'll always have one episode or two episodes that they gravitate back towards that they want to just listen to over and over again. Let them. Those messages are hypnotically feeding into their brain while they're relaxed, lying in their bed at night. And they don't just have to listen to it at night time. They can listen to it while you're eating your tea if you want to put a bit of Smiley on, or while you're in the car going on long car journeys, or while you're driving to school, or while you're getting ready for school. Like sometimes in the morning when I'm putting my makeup on, I'll stick YouTube on or one of my podcasts on, and I'll listen to someone so I can start my day with a good mindset. If you're on here and watching now and you've listened to the podcast, back me up. Tell me what podcast episodes you like. Tell me if your kids like it. Inspire and encourage other people. Give them the trust is the hardest thing for me to build, because most of the people I'm working with find it hard to trust. Me too. So I'm going to keep coming on here and talking to you and showing you the way, because when you get the hang of it and you start doing it and you start seeing the impact it has on your kids, or the impact it has on you, or the impact it has on your whole family, it's massive. And so don't overlook the free stuff because there's value in it, but it isn't going to change overnight. It's a slow process. It's a drip feeding. It's just a constant feeding and tapping into it, okay? Because if you think about our stuff wasn't created overnight. Neither was your child's. And so it's going to take some time to unravel it and get in the zone. And also, for those of you that work in the corporate world or who understand how the change process works, it can sometimes feel like you're taking 2 steps forward and 1 step back. You're not. You never go back to point zero where you started. You can't do, because self-awareness doesn't let you. And that's the key to change, is having self-awareness, is being aware of yourself. You would hire someone like me if you got stuck in a place, because we've all got blind spots. We've all got places that we can't see. But just to give you some idea of how valuable those podcasts are, I've started pinning them on Pinterest, and they've had over 2,000 views in 2 weeks by teachers who could use them as lesson plans. So there's contents in there for like yoga teachers, for PSHE, because now we're starting to realise that we need to educate the whole child, aren't we? And we're going to not just look at their grades. We're going to look at their personal attributes. We're going to look at their emotional intelligence and their social skills. So Julia says your podcasts are great. Fab reviews too. Yeah, they do. I do get really nice feedback, and a lot of my clients. So I'll be on a call with a kid, and then after the call, I always wrap up, and I'll either send them a video from like my library of resources, or I'll direct them to a podcast episode. So yesterday, I had a child with separation anxiety who's not liking shouty teachers. So I was like, oh, you need episode 15. The one with the shouty teacher. See, they're all there. There's 30 of them right now. And if you don't know which ones you need, download the free podcast guide, because on there is a page and it tells you these are the ones you need for worries. These are the ones you need for friendships. So I'm even doing that for you. Apart from come around your house and listen to it for you, there's not a lot else I can do. You have to meet me halfway a little bit, you know. I can't do it all. But yeah, I think I'm not going to start charging for it. I'm joking, but just be mindful. Don't make I can't afford it or I haven't got time the excuse that you don't prioritise it. Just invest and commit to it. It's funny, just before we normally start coaching, so I'm so busy. I can't believe how many clients I've got at the moment. It's the busiest I've ever been since the beginning of time, since 9 years ago, 10 years ago. And I've actually put my prices up, so that's even more crazy. But I just think it shows that people do value it. The people that want to pay for it do value it, and they understand that it's part of their child's, it's foundations for their child's future. But just before they make that commitment, so just before they sign on the dotted line and they fork out the money, and you don't have to pay for it all at once. There is a payment plan if you want to pay for it, pay monthly. But just before they sign on the dotted line, they get like the fear. And then I had one mum, she was really honest. She was like, I'm getting scared now because I'm going to have to look at my stuff too. And I know this is about me and I hadn't really given it that much thought. And now the time has come. But, you've got me holding your hand and going, yeah, it is scary because we're about to dive into the unknown. But that's what you're paying me for, to support you and guide you through it. And I'm not judgmental, and I'm not here to make you feel like you're getting it wrong or to tell you off. It's not my job. And it's funny because you say to the kids, did you watch the video? And they're like, no. And I say, well, that's okay. And then you see their shoulders drop and they're like, oh. And I say, I'm not a teacher. It's not like school. Like, you're not going to get told off. But the more you put into coaching, the more you get out of it. So it's down to you. And it takes kids a few sessions to warm up to you anyway, and for you to kind of build that trust. So start with the free stuff and then move to the lower priced courses. So again, am I pricing them too low? Like the Wildheart starter pack, which is like it's called You're Never Fully Dressed Without a Smile, is only 20 quid. And I'm like, why is everyone not buying that? And I'll tell you why, because in it talks about finding your inner smile. Your inner smile is, what stands for smile is S for smiley thoughts, M for meditation, I for imagination, L for letting go, and E for enjoy, which is about gratitude. They are 5 practices that you could start doing with your child. If they got into the habit of doing the smile, SMILE, those 5 things every day, you would see a massive shift in your child. You would probably start doing it as well, because you would think, I want me some of that because that looks like it's working for my child. And then one mum said to me this week, but why is it that my child will only come and find you when they're in crises, and actually the rest of the time when everything's okay, I say, do you want to listen to a podcast? And they're like, no, I'm all right, mum, I'm okay. And I think there's a couple of reasons for that. One is because you're lurching from crises to crises. So that's a learned behaviour. They're watching you. You're not maintaining some sort of regular practice of self-care or prioritising emotional health. So you're ringing me when you're in crisis and going, Smiley, we need some sessions. So they're learning that from you. And then the other thing is that I would say that child is avoidant, so emotionally avoidant. So listening to the podcast or listening to the downloads, the nighttime downloads, may bring up strong feelings in your child. But that just shows that there's more feelings inside to come out. But that's not a bad thing. But if your child is running from pain or running from feelings or doesn't know how to process feelings in a healthy way, that would be why they're avoidant. Like, their goal then is to call me in a crisis, fix the feelings, eradicate them, and then carry on as normal. It doesn't work like that. Human beings don't work like that. Life is like that, and it's about being emotionally resilient. It's about when the tidal wave hits, it's not a crisis because we've already done the work in between, the maintenance, so that we can cope with the tidal wave when it lands. And we also trust and have confidence in ourselves. We know what comes next. Do you see? So it isn't we're in crises, quick, let's fix it. We feel better now. We'll just shove it in a drawer and forget about it. It's like going to Weight Watchers, isn't it? It's a lifestyle choice, as they say. It's not a diet, Or it's like training to run a marathon. You're not going to get up and just go, I run 26 miles today. No, you're going to put in a training plan. But again, there's no point in downloading the training plan or going on Pinterest and picking all the healthy recipes and just keep looking at them. You've got to actually do it. And that's the hard bit. And this morning I had a call with a client. A lot of my mum clients are freeze responders. So for those of you that have watched my parents' free training, which talks about your stress response to your child, fight, flight, freeze and fawn. If you're a freeze responder, you're the hardest one. I shouldn't say that, should I? Because I'm labelling you. It's hard to work with a freeze response. If you think about it, if you're a fight responder, you're angry, you're aggressive, you're on the attack. That's easy because you can give yourself tools to calm down. If you're a flight responder, you're anxious, you get caught up in doing and being busy. That's easy. You can deal with that. You can set yourself breaks and learn how to relax and meditate and calm down. If you're a fawn or a friend responder, that's relational. That's a little bit more tricky. But the freeze response, you go numb and you check out and you're not there. So that's really hard to work with. It's hard for you to bring yourself to coaching because it's hard for you to acknowledge that you're numb, acknowledge that you need help. It's the asking for help bit, which I think is difficult. And also, if you are a freeze responder, your child is going to be acting out a lot. And that's the squabbling. I was posting about the squabbling this morning. Siblings squabble when they're trying to get your attention. So if you're not emotionally available as a parent, or you're in a freeze response because you've been triggered and you've left the building, your children are going to be like, Mummy, where are you? And then that's when they're going to start playing up. Just take a breath, Smiley. Anyone got any questions so far? Sharing a lot of information. So your Wildheart starter kit is podcasts for your kids, blogs for mums, and then you can start off with your Wildheart starter pack. And then there's the Sweet Dreams bedtime pack. So every child that comes to coaching has to do nighttime relaxation. That empties your emotional backpack at night, dissolves any feelings, connects you back to your soul and your heart, grounds your energy, drift off to sleep, no bad dreams. Brilliant. Julia says freeze, sad face. Yeah, the freeze response is hard. I do go into a freeze response, but it's not my primary response. So, for example, at the moment, I'm not in my own house. I'm staying somewhere else. And the first couple of days I was here, I noticed that I'd been triggered. And I go into a flight response, which is when my brain starts to catastrophize. So, like, coming up with the worst case scenarios possible. Like, what if I burn the house down? What if something happens at my house? Is everything okay? Have I remembered to do this? Have I remembered to do that? My brain is trying to take control of the unknown. It's triggered by the unknown, by being away from my safe space. All our homes or our beds, normally children, when I say to children, where do you feel safest? They say, in my bed. So we all have a safe space. And then if we haven't got secure attachment and we're easily triggered or we're highly anxious, when we move away from our safe space, that can be quite troublesome. And it can feel very uncomfortable. Is there a page on my website for teachers? I used to have a page for schools, Jules. That's a really good idea. I did have a page for schools. Let me see if it's still live. I don't think I've put it in the main menu, but it might still be live. Let's check it out. But then I might have taken it off. Let's see. Because I wasn't sure that was the route I wanted to go down. But now I'm on Pinterest and I'm getting such a massive response to that as lesson plans. Because teachers are always looking for resources, aren't they, to motivate and inspire. And, there's a new episode on that podcast like once a fortnight if I get my act together. Oh, yeah. Boost your school's EQ and bring positivity to your classroom. And there's a flyer. Jules, excellent. smileyforlife.com/schools, would you believe, is the URL. So if you're a teacher watching this or a yoga teacher, or you work in Senko, or you know people that do, that's the link to sell. Jules, can you type it into the chat roll if you're still there? It's just /schools. Thank you. So they're your two things. The first one is free, and those two lower priced courses, don't overlook them because they're just, one's £20 and one's £12.99. I really need to put my prices up because they are so powerful. And don't expect, like, sometimes parents get triggered and go into a flight response and they say, it's not working, why isn't it working? And I'm like, okay, what would it look like if it was working? And they're like, well, my child would not be angry or my child would not be worried. The goal is not to eradicate the feelings. Feelings are messengers. They come into our body with a message. And we have to learn to tune in and listen to them. They're what keep us safe. That's what helps us set boundaries and keeps us safe. We can't eradicate our feelings. So the goal is not to have a non-angry child or a non-worried child or a child that all of a sudden becomes the most popular child in the class and is confident and has got loads of friends. The goal is to create awareness. The goal is to create a toolkit to help the child cope with whatever's going on. The goal is to validate and reassure the child that the way that they're feeling is perhaps a normal response to what's going on around them. You know, sometimes mums say to me, oh God, it's so stressful and blah, blah, blah. And I say, tell me about your day. Tell me about your week. And they're just sitting in this really chaotic, busy, stressful energy with no structure, no boundaries. No time for them to reconnect with themselves and be with themselves. So before you start making yourselves wrong or your child wrong and thinking, what is wrong with my child, or what is wrong with me, or am I being a good enough mum, or am I failing, or am I not doing it right? Look at the energy you're sitting in. Look at the environment around you. What needs to change in that? What do you need to change? Think people, places, timings, scheduling, all of that stuff, routine, boundaries. Boundaries. Don't leave home without them. Thank you, Jules. That's really helpful. Thank you very much. And then obviously if you work with me, so the other day a client said to me, oh, I don't know if you're still doing one-to-one coaching. Heads up, I am. I'm very busy at the moment, but I'm doing it all online, but it works just as well. And actually it makes the kids work a little bit harder because it's a different type of connection when you do it online as opposed to sitting face to face in a room. And that was intentional on my part. But you can buy all those packs and do them, but having me, checking in with me once a week means you have to be accountable. It means I will challenge you. It means I will pick up on your blind spots. And I will also save you time. Because, you know, all of this stuff is out there on the internet. I'm not inventing the wheel, but I'm putting it together in packages that make it easier for you and save time. So instead of you having to read 50 books and spend 15 years in therapy, I'm going, here's a course all about boundaries. Just download it and do a bit every day. And then you'll be right. I'm showing you, signposting you to the things that matter the most. So you don't have to wade through it all. Like needle in a haystack type analogy. And also I personalise your experience and I hold your hand and I'm very kind and calming and reassuring. And I'll keep you on track and give you the confidence to be the best version of you. That's what a mum said to me today. She said to me, I just find it so helpful working with you. She's on a maintenance program. I only speak to her once a month now. So she's done my big program and now she's just on a maintenance. And just knowing that keeps you on track. You know, it's like when I go and see my supervisor, I see my supervisor once or twice a month. That's to help me keep sane within the realms of my job, because my job is triggering. I'm not immune from being triggered. I'm human too. Kids trigger me. When a kid sits in front of me and they have a similar situation to something I faced as a child, that can bring up all sorts of stuff. So I have to then go to my supervisor and say, I've got this kid, this is going on, and then how does it make you feel? What does that remind you of, Lisa? Does that remind you of the time when and then you're off. And then I get healed as well by looking at my stuff. So those kids are wonderful. They teach me and show me the way, and that's what your kids will do to you if you are open to it. If you can look at any challenges you face with your children as an opportunity for you to heal or learn something else. It's not a catastrophe. There's nothing wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with you. It's just an opportunity for you to be curious about it instead of being judgmental. Does that help? If you're online and you've got a question you want to ask me, please do. The online learning den is currently, well, if you go to smileyforlife.com/shop, all of the courses, all of the online packs are in there. So you go to the website and go to the shop. That's the best place to go. We're currently building a new platform for the online learning den, so it's going to look even more sexy and even more whizzy and engaging. So I haven't written any new courses because I'm just working on that at the moment, and that's quite a big piece of work. Still editing the book. I've got corrections coming out of my backside. It's so see, that's really triggering for me. I spoke to my sister this morning, who's like she does all my admin and she does proofreading. And she said to me, Hun, you need to reframe it. She was like, your job was to write the book and you've written the book, and my job is to proofread it and spot the grammatical mistakes and the spelling mistakes. You're doing your job, I'm doing mine. Don't make yourself wrong. Because every time I get a voice note from her saying, page 32, you've missed out there. And I'm like, I've done another mistake. It's so triggery. But that book is going to go out with mistakes in it. There's a mistake in the Smiley thought cards. Only one, really tiny one, which you can't actually notice. See if you can spot the mistake and tell me. Answers on a postcard, please. Any questions, anyone? But I really would encourage you to look at this stuff. It will make your life easier. It will. And your children will thank you for it in 10, 20 years' time when they think, I'm glad my mum listened to that crazy hippie lady with ginger curly hair online. It doesn't have to be scary. She's so right. I know she's really right. And she's very, very supportive and very kind. And also very complimentary and encouraging. So that's nice. It's really nice to work with someone like that. Really nice. If you are a freeze response mum, can I just say, I'm having a bit of a memory block now. Maybe I've triggered myself there. There is a blog post for freeze response mums. If you go to smileyforlife.com/mojo-mama1 or go to the search bar. You can only get the search bar to come up, I think, on a laptop. I don't think it comes up on a mobile or an iPad. And type in freeze response or type in Mojo Mama. There's 2 blogs on there. I've split it into 2 parts and broken it down into baby steps so you don't get into a freeze response and overwhelmed reading the blog post. Because even reading stuff like that can trigger you if you're a freeze responder. As soon as you get into overwhelm, it's like everything collapses and you're like, I can't hear what you're saying, I can't understand, it's too much. Lisa Lai. Hello, Lisa. Oh, Lisa. My Smiley Thought cards arrived today. So excited to look at them with your daughter tonight. Oh, yeah, you'll have so much fun with them. That's lovely, Lisa. Oh, I hope she likes them. I really do. Does she listen to the podcast? I don't know if she's old enough to listen to the podcast. I would say like 7 to 12-year-old for the podcast, but some of the mums like it as well. Do you know what I'm going to do? Talking of cards, I've got a new card deck. Look at those. Aren't they beautiful? Work your light. I'm just going to pull us a little card while we're online and see what the cards want us to know. See what the cards want us to know today. And then I'm going to go and leave you all in peace and do some work. Stop procrastinating. Right, what do we need to know today? Let's have a look. Ooh. The initiation. Rite of passage, crossing the threshold. Can you see that card there? It's quite a... What do you think of when you look at that picture? You see, I'm seeing a light at the end of a tunnel. I'm seeing that you're in darkness. And that's what coaching is like a little bit sometimes. You can't always see the results straight away. And the process that you go through, which is relational, it's about the connection with me, is not tangible. It's not visible. But hopefully... I always show you a light at the end of the tunnel so we know what we're working towards. Let's just see what the book says about the rite of passage, the initiation. Let's just have a look and see. When I'm reading cards like this, I always just look at the pictures and see what they remind me of. So feel free to type into the chat or if that's making you think about something or the words are making you think about something. So an initiation, isn't that like something that leads you into something? Is that what an initiation is? So they have like initiation rituals. So you know, like when you join the brownies and you have to do your promise and you get your badges and stuff. I think that's what it is. I don't know how you get initiated into Smiley coaching. I suppose what Lisa's done, buy a box of Smiley thought cards and listen to the podcast. That's your initiation, isn't it? Here you go. It says, what does it say here? This represents the journey that your soul is required to take to reach somewhere sacred. So this is the journey, so this is your path to healing. That's what that card is. But only the initiated can enter. Perhaps that's where you are right now. You're being tested and initiated because you're heading somewhere sacred. Initiations require that we cross the threshold from one world or state of being to the next. We are called to face what scares us And we have to be willing to lose it all in order to gain a new way of being, of safety, of security, of depth, of meaning. Rites of passage mark the shift from one age to the next and can take place because of emotional turmoil, great loss, grief or devastation. But it's through the seeming hardship that our heart cracks open and our spirit is invested to step forward. You see, your children will do that to you. You cannot remain in denial or frozen. Well, it depends how defended you are, but you can't when your child is acting out. It breaks your heart open. It makes you look at your stuff. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? Yeah, those who are ready for coaching, those who are ready to take the rite of passage, to go through the darkness and believe that there's light and hope at the end of the tunnel. What a lovely card. Oh, I like those cards. I got my crystal ones as well. As opposed to those who don't need it yet but don't know. Yes. And actually, don't worry if you're not ready for coaching yet, because your time will come. Sometimes I have clients who run away the first time or do a little bit of coaching and get triggered, and then they come back sometimes years later. In fact, that happened with a mum recently. She said to me, oh, when you said to me I needed to look at my stuff, I thought, And then she very honestly and open-heartedly came back and said, you're right, I do need to look at that stuff. But she wasn't in enough pain the first time round. And it's normally being in pain, like you have to hit your rock bottom, like they say about addicts. If you haven't hit your rock bottom, you're not in enough pain, you won't be ready for it. And it's normally the kids that are acting out or the kids that are struggling that are bringing the families to coaching. They're like the catalyst that kicks it all off. Lisa says it's a great card, isn't it? It was such a beautiful deck though, Lisa. Look at the artwork on that. I love the colours. Very feminine energy that is. Right, guys, thanks for the cup of tea. Thanks for the chat. If you've got a Wildheart, if you don't know what a Wildheart is, there's a blog post. I'm just going to check that I've got the right one. And it is smileyforlife.com/Wildheart. And it tells you all the qualities of your Wildheart and what to look for. And then there's another post which is called Wildheart Need, all one word together, which tells you what your child needs. But they basically need what I've told you on here. They need you to read the blog and they need to listen to the podcast. All right? Any more questions? Any more? I'll go back in when I come offline and I'll put some of the links in to help you. And there's a new podcast coming out on Friday. Let me just tell you which one it is, because your kids, those who are podcast fans, will be excited to know that. I know that some of you pester the life out of your parents saying, well, when's the new one coming out, Mum? Can we see the C yet? It's TMS 30 and it's called The One with the Brilliant... Oh, come on, Pooter. It's very slow. The One with the Brilliant Ideas for Hungry Brains is the one that's coming out on Friday. So that's all about switching from being worried and anxious and using your creativity to take your brain to a different place. All right, so that'll be exciting. I think mums will like that one as well. You can make vision boards and there's all sorts of creative ideas in there for you to focus your attention elsewhere. All right, thanks a lot, guys. I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.